Hi, this is Tom Gearing again. I thought before I start showing details of my model crane build, I might give a brief tour of my shop and the tools that I use to make my 1/12 scale P&H crawler crane model. During my tour, I will try to point out the tools that you must have, or at least must have access to, in order to build this model. Let me start with a tour of my assembly workbench. I've enjoyed this 6-foot Gladiator woodtop workbench as my primary assembly area, with a benchtop drill press that I purchased from Harbor Freight and retrofitted with a 3/8 inch Jacobs chuck. Not liking messes, I've also arranged a remote control vacuum cleaner to clean up messes as soon as I make them, drilling holes on the drill press. Using pegboard hooks and magnetic tool holders, I've positioned my frequently used hand tools to be conveniently reachable from the workbench. I also have a Dremel Moto saw that I can mount to the workbench for cutting out various wood pieces such as those used to make my model's cab panels. Speaking of Dremel, I also have a Dremel Model 3000 that I use in various configurations, including as a metal cutoff wheel and also as a mini router. On the left side of the workbench, I've positioned a hacksaw, various hammers, a set of inch-size T-handled Allen wrenches, and I also have positioned my parallel bars that I use on the milling machine. Below my assembly workbench, I have two rollaway cabinets. The left-hand cabinet stores my power tools such as a 10-inch circular saw, a jigsaw, angle drill, and a belt sander, with a drawer on top storing the various attachments for those devices. The right-hand rollaway has drawers of socket wrenches, open-end box end wrenches, tap and die set, and various C-clamps and other clamping devices I used in the construction of the model. Stored at the end right-hand side of the assembly workbench, I have my air compressor stored in a cabinet that provides compressed air for my blow-off valve that I use at my machine workstation. Next to my assembly workbench is a 72-inch long by 20-inch deep stainless steel clad New Age workbench that I purchased and further reinforced by installing a 4x4 slightly cut down in depth that I carriage bolted along the center line of this workbench to give it more rigidity to support both my 116-pound workbench mounted lathe and my 202-pound vertical milling machines. These two machines represent what I feel is the minimum machine tools you need to make my model. Let's take a look at each. Access to a benchtop milling machine will be required to make this model. Some of the minimum specifications on the milling machine would include an x-axis travel of 15 inches, y-axis of 7 inches, and z-axis travel of 10 inches. Additionally, the mill should have a mill vise. In my case, I selected a 4-inch vise, number 1 through number 60 jobber length drill bits, a clamping kit, a set of collets and 2 and 4 flute end mills, center drills, and I found a edge and center finder very helpful. Nice new accessories would include a rotary indexing head, angle plates, and I went ahead and added an electric drill to the vertical raising and lowering of the mill's head. You also will need access to a benchtop lathe in order to make the model. I'd recommend the minimum spatial requirements of the lathe to have a swing over the bed of 7 inches and a distance between centers of 16 inches as a minimum. My lathe was fitted with a 4-inch 3-jaw chuck. The tailstock had a 1/2-inch drill bit chuck. It's good to have a live center and I found it most beneficial to have a quick change tool post holder with various tools, such as those shown on the back there, for the various cutting operations. Also, as in any machine shop, you ought to have yourself a good set of 6-inch digital calipers and a dial indicator. Some of the other tools I utilized to make my model included a 6-inch grinder to sharpen tools and drill bits, being careful to wear the proper personal protective equipment and following all the grinder utilization checklist, safety checklist items. I used a Delta 1-inch belt and 5-inch disc sander to sand various components, including the wood panels of the cab assembly. And lastly, let me point out that I used 2 soldering irons, one low wattage soldering iron for soldering electrical components, and a Weiler 260 watt, 200 watt soldering iron, along with 50/50 solder to make the structural components. Again, being careful to pay attention to all the safety requirements of working with lead. One final note, I did utilize a table saw to make various fixtures, for example, to build the boom sections. I also fabricated a drafting table to make full-size layouts of, for example, here is an assembly drawing of the cab assembly and the gantry, calling out the various components of the cab assembly. In closing, I just want to wish everybody good luck in your build. If you have any needs for tabletop machinery equipment, I would highly recommend you consider looking at littlemachineshop.com. They have a very, very extensive listing they contain in a catalog they release periodically. And they also have helpful charts such as this tap and clearance drill size chart for the various tap sizes. Thanks again, stay safe and enjoy.